So now that we've done introductions, we're just kind of going to dive right into it. We're going to have a little discussion about some things that we might have to think about as we travel into the backcountry, especially in winter. And then I'm going to kind of go through how I would make a trip plan or a route on a website called CalTopo, if you've heard of it. And then I'm going to have you guys each make your own route for a future trip that you might take. So I guess you'll have to kind of think of a trip as we're going here, but it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just be like, hey, I'm going to go snowshoeing at Mueller State Park or, whatever. So I guess my first question is, what are some things that we might have to pay special attention to in winter that we don't really have to worry about during the summer months?
Water sources being frozen.
Yes. So I was kind of more thinking of this as a day trip planning, but I should also be thinking more broadly than that. So yeah, definitely water sources. Usually with that, you can just boil snow if it's an overnight trip, but for a day trip, obviously you're not going to carry a stove and stuff. So either carrying enough water or figuring something else out might be important. Yeah. What else?
Maybe like tree wells.
Yeah, definitely.
Like covered things like that.
Yeah. So stuff you can't see beneath the snow, tree wells, hidden like rivers and streams. Those are pretty dangerous because if you fall in them, you'll probably get hypothermia. Stuff like that. What else?
Avalanche risk.
Yeah. So yeah, avalanches are probably the biggest change between summer and winter. So that's one thing we'll be focusing on as we make our routes for sure. Cool. So we got a few differences. I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit more about. I guess those are all kind of like bad things that you have to like watch out for, right? But there's also some good things about traveling on snow in winter time. So the first is energy and efficiency. So when you are hiking on a trail, it feels like walking down the street, but maybe there's hills, right? If you're traveling on skis or snowshoes, it can actually feel a little bit easier than that, in my opinion. So it might not take as long to move between places as it does while hiking. That being said, you don't have to follow a trail in winter, which is another huge change. You can make your own trail, and that takes some practice. Part of that is planning beforehand. So figuring out a route that doesn't have too steep a terrain and doesn't have like really thick trees or anything like that. And then part of that obviously is when you go out there and you're just looking at it like where does it look good to go. But that's a big change. You don't have a trail to follow. So relying on a map, or in this case, we're going to be using our phones partially, is super important. And that kind of leads to the last piece, which is timing. So we'll get more into this, but when you're moving in avalanche terrain, it's generally safer to move when the snow is cold. So that would be in the early morning before the sun has time to warm it up. And it's usually, like, these are blanket statements. It's usually safer to travel in spring when the snowpack has time to homogenize rather than being different pieces from different storms. But yeah, so you can move a lot faster in this terrain. So now we're going to move into CalTopo, which is the main mapping website that a lot of people use. I know Air Force Academy uses it for all of their backcountry stuff. I believe Outdoor Ed almost exclusively uses CalTopo for planning purposes for like true backcountry experiences. There are other apps, but this one, it's free and it's pretty easy to use. Cool. So I am going to share my screen and I'm going to go through the process of thinking of a trip, researching it a tiny bit, and then planning it in terms of the route and maybe thinking a little bit about timing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to go with this one first. Okay. So this season, I have been working on finishing the 14ers, which is all of the 14,000 foot mountains in Colorado. And so up until this point, you can see over here, I have a list of all of the 14ers. And then next to them, I have checks of whether I've done them in winter or summer. And then over here, I have a list of ones that I haven't completed. And so I'm going to draw my inspiration from this list. And I've kind of grouped them into ones that I can put together. So like, I think maybe I can do El Diente and Mount Wilson together or whatever. So I've already done a little bit of the background research, but this is kind of like what I'm thinking I might want to do. So I think I'm going to research Challenger Peak and Kit Carson. I have already researched this route, and I know that it has roughly 6,200 feet of gain, which means that over the whole route that somebody else has done, they climbed 6,200 feet. So that's kind of a lot. A lot of routes on 14ers specifically are kind of more in that 2,000 to 3,000 range. But I did the easy ones first, and now I'm on to the hard ones. So that's kind of where we're at. And then the research that I've done said it was about 14 and a half miles. And the grade, it's less important maybe for this clinic, but it's just telling you how hard or how scary the climbing in the mountain is. So a 3 minus means generally that you're going to be scrambling, so you might be using like all 4 hands, but it's not going to be like true like really scary climbing, which is like pushing into the 4 and 5. For reference, 1 is like walking down the street. 2 is like, I don't know, a normal trail hike where you're not like putting your hands down or anything. Owen, did you have a question?
Yeah, and 5 is rope climbing, right? Or like generally.
Generally, yeah, if you choose to use ropes. But yeah, so 5 is where you get into like true climbing. And then it kind of breaks down from there into like 5.1 as really easy climbing that you probably wouldn't really use a rope for depending on your comfort, all the way up to like, I think we're at like 515. And then there's like A, B, C, D. Kind of a tangent. It gets way harder. But 3- is like not that hard, but kind of spicy, maybe a little scary. So Challenger Kit Carson, that's what I want my trip to be. So I'm gonna go over to just Google, and I'm gonna Google. Oh man, the like tools are all in my way. All right. So I'm just gonna Google Challenger. Oh gosh. Kit Carson. So Challenger Kit Carson Traverse. A great website specifically for 14ers is 14ers.com. They have a lot of great information and pictures on established routes that you can use. It gets a little bit different in winter. Most of them are geared toward summer routes. So you kind of have to play with that a little bit. Sometimes the trailheads aren't accessible. They're not plowed in winter, or, tons of stuff. But at least for our purposes, it can kind of give a nice overview. So it looks like we have a picture of our peak, which looks pretty stunning. These are some things to note. So exposure, rockfall, route finding, and commitment. These are pretty important. So exposure is how, it's basically how scary it is. Like if you look down, are you scared? Exposure high is, it's kind of like a scale that you can't really quantify really well, because like maybe Owen's not scared of anything, so like exposure would always be low, like, so it's just kind of a general feeler. So exposure high, I'm not super worried about, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Rockfall potential considerable. In summer, that's something to worry about for sure, especially with other people. In winter, still something to think about, especially if it's a really sunny day and it's starting to melt, because rocks can come loose, but maybe less of a consideration, just because there's snow kind of gluing everything together a little bit. Route finding doesn't really matter, in my opinion. If you're attempting a 14er, you should have your route like pretty solidly in your head, on a piece of paper in your pocket, and probably on your phone as well. Yeah, you should like really, really know what you're going into before you go on something. So having the planning beforehand. And then commitment refers to more or less if a storm or bad weather were to come in, how easy would it be to evacuate or like leave the area? So a peak, a really good example of like the ultimate commitment peak is Capital Peak, where you kind of get to this spot and then you're just kind of making your way along this knife edge. And then you have like another hour or two of climbing after you go across this really gnarly part. So you don't have a ton of like, oh, I can just turn around and like head back to my car, no problem. Like it's going to take you a lot of time, right? So that's definitely something to look for when you're like researching, or to think about when you're researching. Okay. So then obviously you can look at their routes. They have a lot of good pictures, especially for summer. But for our purposes, we're going to look at the topo map, which will show us where the summer routes are. And sometimes it'll give you winter routes as well. So these little snowflakes around here specify that these are winter routes. When you're looking at these winter routes, usually they're a little bit gnarlier than the summer routes in terms of what we were talking about, like exposure, rockfall. They're usually tight couloirs with snow and ice in them. So they're really great for climbing, really fun routes, but sometimes more challenging. So keep that in mind. I'm looking through here. I see that there's at least a couple trailheads. It looks like we have K2, which is the East Ridge, and A1, which is the Willow Creek approach. Let's see. If we go back to the routes page, we can see all of the routes and then all of the gain and distance and difficulty. So that's where I got my little research from in my spreadsheet. So one thing to note is when it says approach, that's just kind of like getting to the bottom of the mountain. It's like a flat hike usually, well, flat-ish. This one has 3,000 feet of gain. But it's kind of like your setup, like, you know, you're like walking in before you do your climb. Whereas these other routes are like the actual routes up it. So we have our big approach and then our routes up it. So it looks like we have to do the approach. So I'm going to click on that and find our trailhead. So it looks like our trailhead is over here. It usually has, yeah, a like separate link. Okay, so we're looking for Willow Creek Trailhead in the Sangre de Cristo range. So I'm gonna go to CalTopo. All you have to do is type in caltopo.com, and you get, I don't actually know what first comes up, but you get like this big map here, and then you get a bunch of layers and stuff to play with there. You also have a search bar here, so I'm gonna use that. Willow Trailhead. That is definitely not the right one. So maybe I'll just search the mountain. Challenger Peak. Okay, so we have Challenger Peak, but it doesn't have any labels. We can't really tell what's going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up here to this right top of the column. And this is base layers. So what is the bottom map? What is the first map you're going to look at? A good one, I think, is Map Builder Hybrid. Oh, my Wi-Fi. Basically, it gives you a topo map, but with all of the labels, and sometimes trails and roads as well. So here we can see Challenger Point, Kit Carson. So this is what we were looking at right over here on our topo that they gave us. And this long green line is actually right here. So that's super useful. Like, they already gave us a line from this point, and it's already on our map. Perfect. Sweet. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place a point where our trailhead is going to be. So since we are really near a town, and these are probably paved roads in here, maybe not this Forest Service one, but these are paved roads, I'm going to put my starting location here. So to do that, I'm going to go up here to the left, and I'm going to add a marker. And it comes up as this little red dot. You can move it wherever you need it. I'm going to put it right there, and I'm going to call that trailhead. Oh my goodness. The tools for Zoom are always in the way. Okay, so I have my trailhead. Can I have it? Okay, cool. And that should be easy to see from now on. So yeah, it's staying there. It's easy to see. We have our route, this is where our peaks are. So since there's already a line in there, a lot of times you can make a route and it'll snap to that line, which is super cool. So to do that, we are going to add a line. So as these turn yellow, it basically makes it so that your cursor or like your route can follow that. So I'm going to start at my parking spot, and then I'm going to utilize this trail. Oh man. Maybe. There we go. So it's kind of finicky. You just kind of have to go a little bit down the trail and then click. And that usually works out. So I'm going to make my way all the way down this trail. Oh, and if you make a mistake, all you do is click escape and it'll take out the last place where you clicked. Oh. Cool. Okay. So that is our, oh man. Zoom tools in the way again. Okay, so that is our approach. We've done that. Now, Owen mentioned avalanches. So that's something we're gonna have to watch out for. Have either of you had training, any sort of training for avalanche terrain or anything like that? Cool, that is okay. We can still move safely in the backcountry. So super quick intro. There's kind of, I guess, like 2 or 3 things you have to keep in the back of your head. One is that avalanches almost always slide at 30 degrees or above. If it's less than 30 degrees, it's just not steep enough to go. And that's not a hard and fast rule, but for almost all instances, it's true. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that snowpacks are connected. So if you think about maybe a piece, like a big tray of lasagna, right? You've got your different layers, and then you've got like those kind of like noodly layers. You know what I'm talking about? And it's like a big sheet of like noodle material. So snowpack is kind of the same way. So just because you aren't in a place that's 30 degrees doesn't mean that you can't pull on that little noodly bit and mess with another part of the snowpack that is 30 degrees, right? So what we have to think about here is not traveling in 30 degrees or more, and not traveling under or around 30 degrees or more. So CalTopo has a really good tool to visualize that. So in this right-hand side here, we have a lot of different layers, from like motor vehicle use maps to geology, public lands, all sorts of stuff. Super useful for, you know, whatever you're going to be doing. But for winter travel, slope angle shading is kind of one of our like best tools. And then you can do a fixed or gradient. Gradient just makes it a little more smooth. I don't know. I like fixed. It basically just doesn't show anything under about 30. So it goes kind of yellow, orange, red, like purple. And that'll just show exactly how steep each little bit is. Obviously, these are done kind of, you can see they're squares. So there might be pieces of the terrain that are smaller than that square that are steeper than 30, but we're not really worried about that because if that tiny piece is smaller or is steeper than 30, it's kind of like whatever, you know, like if that slides, it's going to be like somebody threw a shovel of snow at you. So we're worried about like the big purple pieces, red pieces, orange pieces, stuff like that. So as we look at our approach, what can we see?
A lot of 34, 35 degree, right?
Yeah. So I'm just going to change the color here so it's a little bit easier to see. But yeah, so we're moving through a lot of colorful terrain, which is not super sweet, especially in places like this. So as we're moving here, like, oh, it's not that steep, and then we're going here, it's pretty steep where we are, and there's a lot above us that's really steep and really scary looking. So we might need to change where we're traveling. So I'm seeing this little swath in here, and you know that's better than this line right here. That being said, I'd still be a little bit worried about these sides because this is just some huge V, right? It's everything sloping in. I'd still be a little bit worried about how far an avalanche could come from one of those and hit me. But that would maybe depend more on like snowpack, terrain, stuff like that. So I'd say for your guys' planning purposes, stay well away from the colorful bits. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to create a route that I feel comfortable traveling in, depending on the snowpack and kind of the avalanche conditions of the day. So I'm going to redo this route, but we don't have to follow a trail, right? So we can make our own line. So I'm just going to go really quick. From our parking spot, we're going to move up. We're going to come to this little nose right here that you can see coming down. We're going to head up the nose. And then I'm not really too worried about this. It's borderline 30, but it's not really connected to anything scary. So I'm going to head straight across that and right into the riverbed. And I'm going to follow the creek up kind of straight through the middle, staying away from these sides as much as I can. So now I have like the top of a bowl right here. So this is like a little bowl and then it kind of widens out again. And I'm pretty worried about the sides, but the best course looks like going somewhere through the middle here. So I'm just going to go straight through here. And then I'm going to keep staying away. Uh-oh. Hello. One second. Sometimes CalTopo does its own thing. Okay, so we've made it to the lake. And I'm going to delete our other line because that looks a little scary. Even though it might have a trail, we want to play it super safe. Okay, what is going on here with all of these? Okay, so we have a trail. I'm going to make it white again just to see it a little bit easier. And we're like, okay, that's decently safe. If I ski this, I'm going to ski it like in spring, like when I know the snowpack is doing well, that kind of thing. Like I said, for you guys, just stay away, stay well away from anything colorful. Okay, so from here, I guess I'll just demonstrate maybe on this line what we should think about, and then while you guys are doing your little lines, then I'll like finish mine. So we have this line, and we're wondering, okay, how long is this going to take? Like, are we going through dense trees? Like, what's this going to look like for us? So CalTopo has this sweet thing where basically you just click on your line and you click profile. And so that is going to tell you, oh, whoa, what? That did not work. Well, it didn't quite work how it was supposed to, but usually how it works is it'll have your line kind of like a elevation side view of you climbing. So it'll give you your distance here of your line and then your elevation here. And usually it plots it and it's great. Oh, I think because my line is white. Yeah, that's why. Yep. Okay, let's make it black. Come on. Note to self, don't use a white line. Cool. Okay, so we're gonna go profile. And this is gonna show you basically what it's gonna feel like to walk up. Like if you made this line directly straight and then just started walking, this is how it would feel. So you've got a few like tiny steep parts, but like nothing too crazy. It'll also show you your range of elevation. So we're starting at about 9,000, ending at about 11,500, and your gross. So how much gain are you doing total, and how much are you losing total? So even though we're going up like 2,500 feet, we're actually climbing 2,800. So that's not terrible, but you kind of want to minimize this this red number on a climb. You don't want to be like going up and down hills on your way there, right? Yeah, that's kind of how that works. And then if you click expand, you get a lot more info. So you get your whole profile like that, and then along each point you get like I don't know how to describe it, like a little key as to what it's going to look like. So the top line, this one right here, is your slope angle. So we want that to be green and yellow. So it looks like in here, I think that's the top of that little bowl we were talking about. It's coming to the red. So we might have to be side hilling and not going like straight up it or something like that. So minimizing the red parts, keeping the slope as low as possible. Another important thing is tree cover. So it looks like we're mostly in like the 50% range, which is not terrible. It's only terrible if you're skiing down. Then it's pretty tight. 50% is pretty tight. So if I were to ski this, I just have to know that it's not going to be that fun once I get to tree line on the way down. All right. And then the last important thing is aspect. And so this is telling you what direction your slope is facing. So our slope is facing west and a little bit south. That's important when we read avalanche bulletins and stuff like that. So if you guys are to travel more in avalanche terrain, you'll need to look at the avalanche bulletin. It'll tell you, hey, these are the aspects that are dangerous. That just kind of shows you what you're working with here. So in terms of timing, there's a pretty standard way to like figure out how long something is going to take. So if there's anything that you take away from this like little online clinic, it's probably this. So basically how this works is for every about 3 miles, that's going to take you an hour, roughly. For every 1,000 feet of elevation gain, that's going to take you an hour. As you adventure more and travel in different ways, that's going to change, and you'll figure it out for yourself a little bit better. And obviously, you'll be slower at elevation. It's kind of how it goes. So for my map, it looks like our total is roughly 3 miles. I know I move faster than 3 miles an hour, so I'm just going to call that an hour for distance. And then my elevation gain total is 2,899. So I'm going to call that 2.5 hours. So I think for me, this would take about 3.5 hours to get to the bottom of the climb. I'll finish out my line, but we only have a few minutes left. So I'm going to let you guys do your line. It doesn't have to be a 14er, doesn't have to be anything specific, just somewhere where you might travel by snowshoe, ski, whatever. So I'm going to give you guys like 8 minutes, which is like not enough time, but you guys should get a feeler for how CalTopo works, and generally how to start building a route.
I tried it, but I don't think I did a very good job.
Cool. Yeah, share. Let's see. And I can give you tips and tricks and pointers and whatever.
You have to enable participant screen sharing. I think just the mountain I chose wasn't a good choice.
I think that should work. What mountain did you choose?
Pyramid.
Yep, that's a tough one for sure.
Yeah. This is what I came up with for avoiding the purple. I made 2. This is my first one. It doesn't look very good up here.
Wait, where's your trailhead?
Oh,
Trying to get my
right
bearings.
here.
Oh, that's Maroon Lake. Okay, and then you come south facing the bells and then come left. Okay, cool. Yeah.
And then you just do this like crazy thing here.
Okay,
But
so up a gully to whatever that is, peak 13,631.
basically my reasoning was you could get up there on this and then like then you'd be above every avalanche.
Yeah, and that's definitely not a bad consideration. Yeah, I actually don't know where the standard route is for pyramid. People definitely ski it sometimes. It's a pretty gnarly peak. It's on the 50 classics, which is the 50 like scariest, coolest ski descents in North America. So it's definitely a gnarly one.
This was my first thought, but I looked at this part and I was like, nah.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there like a steepness where there isn't going to be snow? Like it's just too steep for there to be snow?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of depends on where you are in the US. So Alaska develops like crazy Alaskans like spines on like 70-degree slopes. Just because it has a super maritime snowpack, super wet, just cement. Kind of the same with like Mount Bachelor, like places like that. We have a lot drier snow, a lot colder snow. I don't actually have a number for you, but there definitely is a steepness where it just doesn't stick. I would probably guess that it's probably about 60 or 65. It's like pretty dang steep. But if you look up pictures of pyramid, there's snow covering a lot of it. So yeah, those are the bells for Maroon Lake. Nice. Oh, another consideration for pyramid is that trailhead is actually not open, and you have like a 12-mile hike before you even get to the lake. So that sucks.
Nice.
But yeah, a lot of people snowmobile in if they're going to be doing that. Yep, you pretty much go
multi-day trip
all the way. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, like out to there somewhere. I think it's where the last buildings are. So I mean, yeah, like if you want to go for that, you totally can. But like, yeah, that's just something to consider, I guess.
Cool.
Would strongly recommend against doing pyramid. Even like your first like few years of skiing and climbing.
Yeah.
It's pretty gnarly. But
Yeah,
I like
probably
your line.
won't.
I like your line. I like that you considered the overhead hazard, and that you would be kind of like above the avalanches. That's super smart. Click on your line. How many miles is that? What's our gain like?
This is 6.5 miles, and it's like, I can't remember the gain, but maybe you could like camp out down here or something.
Yeah, you totally can. There's
And
good camping past Crater Lake. So right about there. Either way, 6.5 miles each way isn't too bad.
yeah.
Your gain is almost 6,000, which is a huge day, but still in the doable range. If you're feeling really fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be like 18 or something, like maybe 20. I don't know. It's gonna be a lot once you get all the way out back to Aspen.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
This website is so cool.
Oh, it's so fun to play with.
It's
And
so
there's
cool.
so many different layers too. You can put on like sun exposure and like weather plots and wind plots.
Dang.
It's pretty cool.
Okay. Now we're
Molly,
talking.
do you have something you want to share, or are you feeling good? Where are you at?
Well, I accidentally deleted my line, so I have to redo it.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Where were you looking at adventuring?
Just somewhere like near Bend.
Okay, sure, yeah, definitely. I'm gonna share one more thing quickly, just because it's kind of like the bringing it all together. So definitely play a lot more with CalTopo, and if you want to venture near colorful zones, definitely get Avalanche trained. Super important. And if you are in avalanche terrain, you should have at least one or two friends and a beacon shovel probe at the minimum. So the last thing I want to share is how you like move this map to like a phone or stuff like that. So we have our map, we have our line. It looks pretty okay, whatever. As we said, this is probably not a sweet winter route, like not super safe. But what we're gonna do is we're going to export, and oh man, oh no, we're gonna print. So we're gonna print to PDF, and basically what you can do here is if you're dragging around, you can find exactly how you want it to look. And then this red box is basically what exactly is going to print. So I'm just going to change that to landscape because my line is more left to right, and then make it a little smaller and put it right over my line. You can add like a bunch of pages, so you can have like different, like slightly different maps, or like more zoomed in ones, and stuff like that. If you need like a specific little zone, that's useful. But the important thing, once you get all this set up, is that your format is Geospatial Pdf. And that basically means that it's going to tell your phone where you are on the map. So none of this really matters. You can make polygons and stuff to like specify different zones when you're making your map, and like add grid lines to tell you exactly where you are if you like need to read coordinates and stuff. Doesn't really matter as long as this is Geospatial Pdf. I think you can only keep it for 7 days for the free one. So make your map within 7 days of when you're going to adventure. And then you're just going to click generate PDF. And it usually takes like a good second, because it basically creates your map and then creates like its own website for that map, if that makes sense, so that your phone can like download it and like use it. So I don't know how to share this part. Maybe I'll just get the app on my iPad real quick. It's an app called Avenza, and it's basically just an app that you can download a lot of different maps onto. It's also free. I think it has in-app purchases, but the free version works. Okay, I can't get it on my iPad. Well, I can show you on my phone. It's going to be a little bit harder, but basically we just need to copy this link and then type it in the app on Avenza. So I'm going to stop sharing just so that I can try to show on my phone. So I tap Avenza Maps, and it looks like I already have a few in here. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to go to this little plus sign, and we click download or import a map, and then it has a bunch of different options. So some of them have QR codes on them. It looks like ours actually does. So there's a little QR code scanner up here. Just click that, and then scan the QR code in the map you made. It's going to be in the bottom right corner. And then it should automatically download your map. So it just downloaded my map. It's the top one here. And then you can tap into it, and it says, oh, I have too many maps. You can only have like 4 maps in the free version, or 3 or 4 active maps. But I just deleted my other ones. So yeah, it pulled up the map I just made. You can zoom in, look at everything you just made. So it's going to look exactly like CalTopo. So if you have different layers and different slope shading and different stuff, it's going to look how it looks on CalTopo. And then since we saved it as a GeoRef PDF, there's like a little like location button down here that you can tap. And even without Wi-Fi or data, it can find your location on that map as long as you're on the map. So obviously, like, it won't work for me right now because it's like not currently on the map, but it will show you where you are on the map. Now, you can't just rely on your phone. What if it dies? It's cold, like bound to happen. I would recommend also printing out your map and keep it in a pocket and know how to use it as well. It's a lot easier to use a phone. It's a lot more convenient to just pull out a phone. Oh, there I am, zoom, like here's what I need to do. But you should also have that paper copy and know how to use it as well, just in case. That's kind of a flyby intro to CalTopo, navigation, and line creation, navigation tips and tricks. That went longer than I thought, actually. I was talkative, I guess. Do you guys have any questions? Molly says no. Owen? No questions. Okay, well, yeah, I would like to stress that I guess there's that one main takeaway of like an hour per 3 miles and an hour for every 1,000 feet. Yeah, there's a map. I like that. Sweet. So yeah, the timing and making sure you get out there early before the sun has a chance to warm it up. The second takeaway would be don't travel in avalanche terrain unless you're trained to travel in avalanche terrain and have the proper gear. So avoiding those colorful spots. And then the third would just be prepared. So what we were talking about at the start with like water and like water sources and making sure you have enough food for your hike and all the necessary gear, including repair gear, right? This is a little more trip planning and less navigation, but definitely important. And then the last thing is, yeah, you don't really have to travel on trails, which is pretty cool. It's pretty unique. You can kind of go wherever you want. So any last comments, questions, concerns? All right. Well, that concludes our clinic. Don't be afraid to reach out to anybody at Outdoor Ed for more info or tips or tricks. Yeah, I'm always open to hanging out and playing with CalTopo. Definitely something you guys should explore more if you want to go into the backcountry outside. There's so many different cool ways to use it, and obviously I only know a few that are useful to me, but there's plenty of other ways. So keep exploring that, and yeah, if you guys don't have anything else, then we'll just wrap it up.
Cool. Thank you.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming. All right. See you guys later.
Bye.